The recent decision to drastically cut NASA's budget has left many in the space community shocked and deeply worried, especially former NASA Administrator Bill Nelson. President Trump's 2026 budget proposal aims to reduce NASA's funding by a staggering $6 billion, which amounts to nearly 25% of the agency's total budget. This move threatens to dismantle some of America's most ambitious space exploration programs, particularly those targeting the Moon and Mars. But here's where it gets controversial. These cuts could potentially derail decades of progress and billions of dollars already invested in these missions. Bill Nelson, a former Democratic senator who not only led NASA as its 14th administrator, but also flew aboard the space shuttle, expressed his profound disappointment. "A lot of things I deeply care about and worked hard on are getting cut," he lamented. His words reflect the frustration of many who have dedicated their careers to advancing U.S. space exploration. One of the most devastating consequences of the proposed budget is the cancellation of NASA's Space Launch System, SLS, and the Orion crew capsule after their third Artemis mission, scheduled for 2027. This effectively means that all future lunar missions would be grounded, despite the massive investments and years of development poured into these programs. Imagine the impact of halting a program designed to return humans to the Moon and eventually send astronauts to Mars, goals that have inspired generations. The cuts don't stop there. Nearly every sector within NASA faces reductions, including a harsh 50% cut to major science programs that support thousands of researchers worldwide. This raises serious concerns about America's ability to maintain its competitive edge in space, especially as China rapidly expands its own space initiatives. The global space race is intensifying, and these budget decisions could shift the balance. Even the highly anticipated Mars Sample Return (MSR) mission, which aims to bring Martian rock and soil samples back to Earth for detailed study, is on the chopping block. The White House dismisses the mission as grossly over budget and argues that its scientific objectives could be achieved through future human missions to Mars instead. Additionally, a White House document points out that the MSR wouldn't deliver samples until the 2030s, suggesting a long wait that may not justify the current costs. The Artemis program, NASA's flagship initiative to return humans to the Moon and eventually reach Mars, is being gutted just as it gains momentum. However, there is one notable exception: a $1 billion increase in funding for human exploration efforts focused on Mars. This selective funding raises questions about the administration's priorities and long-term vision for space exploration. Drawing from his unique experience in both politics and spaceflight, Nelson remains a prominent and vocal figure in debates about the future of U.S. space policy. He told the Daily Mail that cutting back on lunar and Mars missions, both of which are international priorities, undermines NASA's future and the progress he worked hard to achieve during his tenure. But it's not just programs at risk. Personnel cuts are also a major concern. Nelson highlighted that NASA employees have been encouraged to retire, with one wave in June and another ongoing, resulting in as many as 3,500 staff members leaving with incentives such as 3 months' pay to retire early. Those people don't go to work, by the way. They are just paid, Nelson explained, emphasizing the loss of experienced talent. Contrary to some rumors, NASA sources clarified that these retirements were not related to the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, a department once led by SpaceX CEO Elon Musk, but were instead part of a direct incentive program from the administration. Nelson warned that losing these seasoned professionals, many of whom hold leadership roles in high-risk programs like space technology, lunar missions, and space science, poses serious risks to NASA's operations. Everything is so high risk at NASA, you just can't afford to have any mistakes because the consequences are so dire, he said, reminding us of the tragic loss of 17 astronauts in past missions due to errors. Adding another layer of complexity, Trump-appointed Secretary Sean Duffy holds the unusual dual role of leading both NASA and the Department of Transportation. While this unconventional leadership pairing aligns with the Trump administration's push for streamlined government, it raises questions about whether one person can effectively manage two such demanding positions. At the Department of Transportation, Duffy has already initiated significant reforms, including efforts to streamline the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, relocate staff, modernize systems, recruit more air traffic controllers, and sign an executive order aimed at boosting the commercial space sector by easing regulations. Duffy's focus for NASA has been steering the agency toward human exploration of other planets. Just last month, he announced an ambitious plan to fast-track the development of a 100-kilowatt nuclear reactor on the Moon by 2030. This reactor would power future lunar bases and help the U.S. maintain its lead over China in the increasingly competitive space race. Nelson expressed hope that Duffy could serve as a stabilizing force for NASA during these turbulent times, but pointed out a glaring issue. How can he do both jobs? This question underscores the challenges NASA faces not only from budget cuts, but also from leadership structure. The Daily Mail has reached out to both the White House and the Department of Transportation for comments on these developments. So, what do you think? Is this budget proposal a necessary recalibration of priorities? Or does it risk undermining America's leadership in space exploration? Could focusing on Mars over the Moon be the right strategy? Or are we abandoning critical stepping stones? Share your thoughts and join the conversation below.